Discover the chilling story of Ivan Jesus Tejera Quintera, a young football hopeful whose life was tragically cut short by a shocking act of violence. Uncover the truth behind the seemingly ordinary love story that turned into a nightmare, leading to a gripping courtroom drama that captivated an entire city. What drove a father to commit such a horrific act against his daughter's boyfriend? How did Ivan's dreams of becoming a professional footballer lead to his untimely death? What dark secrets were revealed during the trial that changed the course of the investigation? Why did the neighbors' testimonies play a crucial role in the case against Norberto? How did Ivan's family and friends fight for justice in the face of conflicting accounts and hidden truths? In May 1995, Ivan Jesus Tejera Quintera was born to Juan Domingo Tejera and Nancy Quintero. They lived in Pergamino, in the northern region of Buenos Aires province, Argentina, and had 5 other children. Juan worked as a waiter at a local bar called El Ruyo. Ivan, also known as Pipo, a common nickname in Argentina, grew up in a hard-working family that faced the usual struggles of making a living. Not much else is known about Ivan's early life, but what is known about his adolescence paints the picture of a sociable and cheerful young man. Since the age of 14, Ivan had maintained a friendship with another teenager named Tamara Nunes. They often exchanged messages on social media. Ivan stood out for his ability to socialize and his great sense of humor, which made him popular in groups. Moreover, he was full of dreams, one of which was to become a professional footballer. He was part of a local football team, and those who knew him claimed he showed a natural talent for the sport. By 2011, the friendship between 16-year-old Ivan and 14-year-old Tamara had evolved into a romance. Tamara was the daughter of Norberto Fabian Nunes and Maria de Los Angeles Nunes. Her father worked in a security company, and it's unknown what her mother did for a living. Even though Tamara's parents were no longer together, this didn't distance Norberto from his daughter. In fact, it seemed to strengthen his authority over her, which was something uncommon in similar situations. In the same city of Pergamino, an adolescent love story unfolded between May and June 2011. When their relationship officially began, Ivan was head over heels, and to his joy, Tamara felt the same way about him. Although the relationship was supported by their families, it represented a true headache for Norberto. The young girl lived with her father, and according to neighbors and acquaintances, he always tried to excessively control Tamara. Even before she started dating Ivan, she had already been in 2 previous relationships, but her father threatened the suitors and scared them away. The reputation of this man's bad temper was well known, so it didn't surprise anyone that he became excessively jealous due to Tamara's relationship with Ivan. A few months later, the father started accusing Tamara of neglecting her studies and claimed that the problems at school were due to the relationship. Once, when Norberto found the couple alone at home, he not only created a scene but also went directly to Juan's, Ivan's father, workplace. In public and without holding back at all, he made a terrible scene. He furiously shouted, confronted Ivan's father, and told him he had found them together. He demanded that he didn't want to see the boy anymore and, leaving no doubts about his intentions, warned that things would end badly if the young couple didn't obey and continued their relationship. Unaware of the danger, Ivan and Tamara, as teenagers often do, persisted in their love. Norberto showed up for the second time at Juan's workplace, threatening him much more directly and warning him that if he knew they were still together, he wouldn't hesitate to throw him out of the window. Blanca Aurora, who was Ivan's aunt, found out about the entire incident because her brother reported Norberto for threats. However, no warning or disturbance from Norberto seemed sufficient to stop the relationship between the kids, who were about to celebrate their 1-year anniversary. On Thursday, January 5, 2012, life went on as usual in Norberto Nunes' house. Although it was never confirmed if they lived in the same apartment, Norberto was resting in his room while Evangelina Mabel Saddle, his sister-in-law and ex-wife's sister, slept in another room. Simultaneously, in Tamara's room, her cousin Lucrecia Nunes was also present. It is presumed that during the early hours of that morning, Ivan visited Tamara and lay down with her in the same room where her cousin was. On Friday, January 6, around 8 in the morning, Norberto woke up, and upon seeing the boy in his apartment, everything spiraled out of control. Enraged, furious, and completely beside himself, he started insulting and hitting Ivan with slaps and a few punches. At the same time, Tamara tried to stop him, begging her father loudly to stop. Later, Norberto called Evangelina, and she also tried to intervene to calm the situation. Amidst the chaos, he asked Tamara urgently to call her mother. After talking to her daughter, Maria went to the apartment with her brother Nestor Eduardo Nunes. However, their presence there also failed to calm Norberto's fury. On the contrary, he became violent towards Maria and Evangelina. For about an hour and a half, the situation persisted. Norberto, in the room where the young couple was, intensified the verbal aggression towards the teenager with threats and insults, yelling that if he didn't jump out of the window on his own, he would take care of throwing him. The uncontrollable screams woke up Milagros del Rosario Ruiz, the neighbor from the upper apartment, who alarmed her grandmother Norma Maria Conti and her father Carlos Alberto Ruiz. As the violence seemed to escalate, Norma went out into the hallway of her floor to check if the noises were coming from the neighboring apartment. Upon returning, she noticed that the cause of the commotion was an apparent family fight in the apartment below on the 7th floor. Amidst the tumult, one could distinguish Tamara's desperate pleas to her father to stop the beating. At that moment, with Ivan's lack of reaction, Norberto struck the boy at least twice with a closed fist. As a result of the two blows, one fracturing his nasal septum and another breaking his lower jaw, the teenager fell unconscious. The man then lifted him, taking advantage of the situation, by placing him at the window of the room and tossing him into the void. It was approximately 9:30 in the morning. When the sound of shattered glass echoed, shattering Norma's heart, Ivan lost his life just minutes after the fall. The family's lawyer, Pablo Calenti, explained that this was the place where Ivan Pipo Tejera was thrown unconscious from the balcony, or rather, from the window. Tamara hastily got on a motorcycle, went to her boyfriend's family home, and informed her sister-in-law, Lucia, that Ivan had decided to jump from the 7th floor. Bruno, upon hearing the girl's words, ran barefoot to the scene to assist his brother, with their father Juan following in his car. At Lucia's home, confusion lingered. When the paramedics arrived, they made futile efforts to revive Ivan. Later, officers Diego Sanita, Pablo David Cairo, and Jorge Marcelo Bello arrived at the scene. At that moment, Juan confirmed the most devastating news of their lives. Although Norberto was detained for a few hours at the Pergamino Departmental Police Investigations headquarters, he only faced charges of assault and threats. Subsequently, testimonies from Maria, Evangelina, and Nestor supported the version that Ivan had jumped on his own and that they had tried to prevent it. As a result, the police released him. Tamara supported her father's narrative. Meanwhile, forensic Dr. Ramiro Urbanija, during the autopsy, confirmed that the teenager had been repeatedly struck before the fall, as indicated by the multiple injuries on his face, the fractured nasal septum, and the broken left jaw. According to the expert, if the injuries had occurred during the fall, they would have been more extensive and deforming. As part of the investigations, the forensic examiner also examined Norberto, Evangelina, Nestor, and Maria, and none of them had evident injuries. This detail suddenly contradicted the assertion that they had tried to directly intervene in the conflict. Investigators, dismissing the idea that Ivan had attempted suicide, considered the possibility that he had tried to escape and, in the process, had fallen. This assumption seemed the most logical and gained traction for prosecutor Juan Andrés Gracia. Thus, the case spread throughout the city of 100,000 inhabitants, sparking debates about what had occurred. As hours passed, details about the forbidden relationship between the two teenagers began to surface. Amidst the conflicting accounts and the quest for truth, Maria reiterated her initial statement to the press. Although she admitted that her daughter's father had struck the boy several times, a phrase she uttered made headlines. At that moment, he jumped as if he were diving into a pool. However, neither Juan nor his wife Nancy were willing to believe the words of that family, especially those of Norberto, whom they considered the main suspect in their son's tragic death. Accompanied by friends and neighbors, the grieving parents protested outside the prosecutor's office, making their plea in a very direct manner for about an hour and a half. In Tamara's room, Norberto escalated the verbal aggression towards the young man with threats and insults, yelling that if he didn't jump out of the window on his own, he would throw him out himself. The shouts woke Milagros del Rosario Ruiz, the neighbor from the upper apartment. Frightened, alerted her grandmother Norma Maria Coney and her father Carlos Alberto Ruiz. As the violence seemed to escalate, Norma went out into the hallway of her floor to check if the noises were coming from the neighboring apartment. Upon returning, she noticed that the cause of the commotion was an apparent family fight in the apartment below on the 7th floor. Amidst the tumult, she could distinguish Tamara's desperate pleas to her father to stop the beating. At that moment, with Ivan's lack of reaction, Norberto struck the boy at least 2 times with a closed fist. His mother was aware that the fate was now in the hands of the prosecutor. In an emotionally charged plea, Juan expressed his feelings from the deepest part of his being. At that point, the second prosecutor in charge, Nelson Mastorio, along with the defense, advocated for the maximum penalty for Norberto. Amid the investigations, an unsettling idea arose based on statements from various witnesses. There began to be suspicions of a relationship between the father and daughter that went beyond natural boundaries. Consequently, the minor's advisor Andrea Abda filed a complaint against Norberto to investigate possible sexual abuse towards his daughter. The prosecutor in charge of this complaint was Corina Apoy. However, the situation was about to take a turn as 2 days later. On January 8, 2012, neighbors decided to testify before the authorities. Although initially they preferred to remain anonymous, they all provided a version different from the one presented by Norberto. Consequently, considering these testimonies along with the suspicions of the young man's family, prosecutor Juan Andres requested Norberto's arrest. Not only that, but he also changed the nature of the case from an investigation into the cause of death to a case of simple homicide. Once behind bars, Norberto chose not to make a statement to the prosecutor. It was at this point that family and friends mobilized again to ensure the case didn't lose momentum. The Ortiguera family's lawyer, Pablo, stated in some media outlets that the appropriate legal charge was that of triple qualified homicide for illegal deprivation of liberty followed by the death of a minor, premeditation, and craven cowardice. In his opinion, all the adults present in the house had agreed to pretend that Ivan had acted against them. On January 9, 2012, friends, family, and neighbors marched to the prosecutor's office handling the case seeking justice. 150 people, mostly young, previously summoned through a social network, wanted to support them. During the demonstration, some of Ivan's loved ones dared to share with national media outlets and local journalists Norberto's history of threats. Meanwhile, outside the protest, Juan and Nancy were first received by the mayor of Pergamino, Hector Gutierrez, and then by the district's attorney general, Mario Gomez, who provided them with details about the progress of the investigation. About an hour passed and without making any statements, the parents left. Throughout this period, protesters blocked traffic on the street demanding justice. Drums could be heard and there were emotional moments. In the afternoon, Mayor Hector informed a major national media outlet that investigations were ongoing and would shed light on the case. Although he didn't provide details, he mentioned that the prosecutor had a preliminary impression which was supported by new testimonies. Another protest took place later that day, also organized by Ivan's friends. During this process, it was concluded that Norberto had a special, even unhealthy, obsession with Tamara. Amidst all of this, 2 years passed during which the main suspect remained detained at the 13 de Junín Penitentiary Unit until the start of the trial was finally announced. The trial began on Monday, February 17, 2014, at the Criminal Trial Court of Pergamino, with judges Norberto, accused of simple homicide with illegal deprivation of liberty, arrived in custody and handcuffed. During the first hearing, neighbors Norma provided a compelling account and precise details of what they witnessed that morning, complicating the accused situation. They saw from their balcony how Ivan seemed unconscious, as he made no attempt to hold on to anything while his father-in-law tried to throw him off the balcony. Additionally, they described the teenager's head tilted back and his gaze lost. Meanwhile, Ivan's parents also testified and mentioned the threats made by Norberto. They described their son as a good young man, someone who loved life and would never have thrown himself into the void of his own will. However, Norberto's lawyer insisted that Ivan had thrown himself by his own means, although he suggested that perhaps he did not intend to take his own life. In his words, it was crucial to await the statement of the accused family, as only they would have witnessed the events in detail. Officers Diego, Pablo, and Jorge from the Buenos Aires Scientific Police also testified, clearly indicating that it was a crime. As a result, a visual inspection of the scene of the tragic event was ordered for the following morning. During the procedure, the three judges, Prosecutor Nelson, Lawyer Pablo, and the representative of the accused were to participate. The defense, arguing that they had done nothing to prevent the tragedy, requested that Maria Evangelina and Nestor be investigated. This day was particularly difficult for Juan and Nancy. The next morning, during the inspection at Tamara and her father's residence, the authorities also went to the 8th floor where Milagros, Norma, and Carlos lived to verify their testimonies. The accused Norberto appeared surrounded by prison guards and local police ensuring his safety. He was asked to wear a bulletproof vest. Meanwhile, outside the building, people gathered spontaneously to show their discontent towards Norberto, including neighbors, friends, and those who knew Ivan's family. Some friends left flowers at the place where the teenager lost his life. The trial extended over several days with defense witnesses and the 4 people present during the incident giving their testimony. Tamara, for the first time, had to testify and her responses were contradictory. Finally, on March 14, 2014, the verdict was announced. Norberto Fabian Núñez was found guilty of premeditated murder in the case of Ivan Jesus Tejera and was sentenced to life imprisonment. Although Norberto was not physically present, he participated virtually and explained that the situation got out of hand when he discovered the teenager with his partner. Amidst the hugs that seemed never-ending and the tears of relief over the sentence, Juan and Nancy, along with family and friends of Ivan, found some solace, although they admitted that the wound would remain open forever. When journalists asked about Norberto's future, Juan's calm and serenity caught attention. On that particular day, he couldn't stop thinking about his lost son. Juan could vividly picture Ivan's transparent smile, unlike in the previous 2 years. It was an expression of gratitude towards the judges and the prosecutor for the investigation and the verdict. It was also an acknowledgement for that endearing and exemplary man who never stopped seeking justice. As for Nancy, although she expressed satisfaction with the verdict and the peace it brought to her and her family, she emphasized that her son's absence was felt every day. However, in her role as a mother, she didn't forget to mention that it was crucial to continue fighting for her other children. Lucia remembered her brother with an emotional message on her social media. Her words revealed how deeply she felt, wishing to have him by her side despite knowing that Ivan rested in peace wherever he was. Nevertheless, she confessed that losing him in such terrible circumstances made it difficult to accept his absence. Hey, true crime case solvers. Interested in more real-life murder mysteries? Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. Do you have any thoughts about this case or have a case of your own you'd like us to investigate? Leave us a comment. Until then, stay safe.